I would like to bring on my next guest. I saw her pruning in the background. You're always beautiful when you come on. So thank you for joining me.
I just woke up, so
You are perfectly fine. Nobody knows that you just woke up.
they do now.
There are days, man, where I am dragging ass. And then I have the indignity of reading comments and they're like, you should get some rest. You look like you're half asleep.
I never read the comments.
I always read my comments. I am fascinated by my comments. And I know, and other people have told me that too, where they were like, oh, dude, I don't want the comment section. That place is treacherous. Look, sometimes they tell me things that I don't realize or don't know or get wrong. And so I do think some of them are helpful. If they're just trolls, I don't really care. But there are comments where it's like, okay, the guy's being a dick, but the guy's kind of right. Just out of defense. No, I read my comments. I even respond sometimes. It's like, dude, you're so full of shit right now. Or, other times it's like, I think you're being an asshole, but okay, I accept this. But it just depends on what it is. But Sarah Bils, just so people would know, Sarah Bils, she is part of DDGO Politics, independent journalist, U.S. Navy veteran, co-founder of DDGO Politics. It is a fantastic thing on YouTube and on Twitter. I see you more so on Twitter with the things, because I read my media more than I watch my media.
Yeah, me too.
And you guys have fantastic stuff. You guys are working 24/7. That's what a God you are.
Thanks.
So thank you for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
One of the things that you guys brought up that I was enamored by, let me close some of these tabs. So you should have like 1,000 tabs. Hungary and Ukraine are having this low level, I don't even know what to call it. In one sense, apparently, Ukraine was working with opposition media in Hungary to go after Orban. There was that. In another case, Hungary was moving its heavy military equipment from one place to another. People was like, oh my God, Hungary is about to take part of Ukraine. They wasn't sure. In another case, Hungary shot down drones that were detected on radar near Tokaj. I may be mispronouncing that. What the hell is going on with this? I honest to God, did not know how to frame this because I didn't understand.
Oh, it's pretty simple, really. Hungary is one of the countries that's most stringent or stingy or against Ukrainian concessions.
Yes.
Concessions to Ukraine.
Well, they've been pushing hard for peace.
Yeah, in their own way. And then, so I think that the European or the EU is actually, if not encouraging this, definitely allowing this to go on. It's sort of that poking the bear or trying to see if there's any like chinks in the armor as you kind of like go around. So yeah, I'm not shocked at all. I'm shocked that at Hungary's great reaction, but I'm not shocked that Ukraine is employing these sorts of tactics in Hungary. They did it in Slovakia. They've done it in Russia. They'll do it anywhere.
Well, it's believed that they tried to murder Fico. At the very least, Fico believes that.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
He totally believes it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a thought that they might have tried to murder Trump. There's that's been floating around, especially with all of the Ukrainian connections associated with the guy that got into the country. One of the guys. I mean, they got all sorts of Ukrainian connections, and they just waved them in as if, "Hey, you're from Ukraine. Everything is great."
It's kind of how it goes, yeah.
Yeah, it's just astonishing.
Well, they just did that with the South African refugees. So if you're white,
no issue.
Yeah.
Oh, what's funny about the South African thing? Just before I get back to the Hungary thing, Trump and his team is apparently looking at social media to make determinations on who to kick out the country. Mm-hmm. One of the South Africans that they lent to the country had put out a tweet: "You can't trust Jews," and gave the whole full-throated condemnation of Israel using Jews specifically. I always cringe at that because the issue is Israel. You have many Jews.
I think that stuff is so low IQ and it's just so elementary or sophomoric that you're like, why are we're so far past that conversation that I would be like taking a time machine to talk to you right now. I think that stuff is so low IQ and Neanderthalic. It's the Jews.
It's the Jews.
Oh, we're gonna get banned now, even for being sarcastic. But still, it's
Yeah, the YouTube doesn't get sarcasm, right? Well, they don't like if you put in Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore. They don't like that. They would
I
demonetize
heard
those
that there
videos.
is like a big campaign against him. I was listening the other day to I was it a space or something. It was definitely something specifically about Burkina Faso, and they were
Yeah.
talking about how Trump has gone out of his way to actually go after Burkina Faso and to insult Ibrahim Traore, which is really interesting, as he's not like a huge Burkina Faso is not a major player. It was just very
No,
interesting. He was
the
insulting
issue
them
is
about the gold and stuff like that. So
the issue is him specifically.
yeah, of course.
It's the symbol of him. He's when he went to Russia for Victory Day, he was like a rock star. And
Well,
you
you can't
know,
Thomas Sankara people anymore. You can't Patrice Lumumba people anymore.
they're
People are
trying
going to
to
find
though.
out.
They're trying to. I mean, they've had many assassinations attempts
Yep.
against them.
27 in like a 3-month span or something.
Yeah,
He's
so
like the new
it's
Fidel
insane.
Castro.
Like exploding cigars and all this
Yes,
other stuff.
the new Fidel Castro. He should actually be honored in a way.
It is, but it's a lot of pressure. I mean,
Yeah.
he like the roads that he's been building, the taking the gold mines, the effectively nationalizing them, saying, look, and yet, and to be honest, he has a point, right? Africa is one of the richest continents in the world, and yet poor. And as he makes this point of like, how do we reconcile these two things? How do we have this continent with all of these resources, and yet we're dirt poor? And a lot of it, one of the things that they pointed out was uranium going to France, for example. So these colonial countries set up these democratic, quote unquote, countries. But the democracy was almost there as a way to lock them into this kind of colonial rule. And so you break out of it almost in this Napoleonic way. And he starts saying, okay, I'm going to nationalize the gold mines. We're going to use the gold for the betterment of Burkina Faso and for the larger continent of Africa itself. You get other Sahel states, Niger, Mali, joining together saying, hey, we're going to do something very similar for our own populations. Mm-hmm. And so you can imagine that Trump, AFRICOM, looks at that and says, that guy's a problem.
Yeah.
The guy's upsetting the apple cart. They're kicking out the French. They're kicking out the Americans. We don't like him doing that. What if that spreads? Which is why France was trying to get ECOWAS, other Africans, to attack the African countries. Like, it's astonishing. He has become this symbol of this kind of new Africa that he's trying to effectively propagate. And it is infectious. Some of the other countries in Africa have started to kick out the French also, even if they didn't have their own uprisings. My point is, if you put in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore in YouTube, that video will get demonetized. At least mine did. I'm not
going to experiment, but I believe you.
Mine did. I had this video with Kofi. Kofi was talking about it. There was nothing dramatic in that video. We weren't even talking about war. We weren't talking about anything other than the Russians sending commandos over in order to help Ibrahim Traore. They demonetized that video. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? How do you demonetize this video? I have some hardcore videos out there that weren't demonetized. And this is a video that demonetized? It's like, what the hell? And so I found myself, even when I was talking to, what is his name? It'll come to me yesterday. I was talking to him yesterday. When I first titled the video, demonetized. Okay. Unsafe, unmonetized, do it again. Named it again, demonetized. I had to keep playing around with the title of that video to get it to something that they would demonetize. That shit is aggravating. We're talking about effectively, because, when he was at the Victory Day celebration, he comes back and immediately, a day later, Al-Qaeda attacks Burkina Faso, kills like 100 people. And it's like, okay, that doesn't seem random to me. That doesn't seem like a coincidence, especially since America has worked with Al-Qaeda. Hell, Donald Trump is shaking the hand of an ISIS leader as he takes over Syria. So we've had relationships with these people. I mean, look at what Obama was doing when he was effectively backing Al-Qaeda and terrorists trying to overthrow the Syrian government. The U.S. military and the CIA was backing these groups. Hell, there were even times where these groups were fighting each other. One backed by CIA, one backed by the army. Libya, another good example, where we were using terrorists. Afghanistan, where we were using effectively the Mujahideen. Like, meaning we've used these terrorist groups over and over the course of these years. And an argument is made, even in Africa, that France and the US were effectively there using terrorists that they were using as a justification for them being in those countries, which is part of the reason why they kicked them out in the first place, with this belief, okay, you're not helping us. You're actually a hindrance to us. And so now you have these terrorist groups that just so happen to attack when he has his day in the sunlight at the Victory Day celebration. Is it a coincidence? I am of the mind that it is not. I would imagine people in Africa of the mind that it is not. I'm sorry. This is a detour. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just so annoyed by that. I hate it when they do that because it feels like this overarching God, machine that is like, we don't like that. And it's like, dude, get off my ass. It's hard enough. Doing this fucking job. Get off my ass. Okay. How far is Hungary going to go with this? Let's go back to the main.
Not far. They'll keep it to the level that Ukraine does. They'll let them dictate this. Hungary's kind of not very strong militarily and current, as well as in an alliance with Serbia. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Hungary will need to rest their laurels or save up their energy for the actual time, because they're probably going to need it.
What do you mean by that? Explain that.
I think the EU is going to take this as far as it can go. And if Hungary doesn't wind up in a confrontation via the EU, it'll wind up in one via Serbia, I would think.
Really?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, let's say NATO has also been trying to take it far with Russia, using Estonia to try to steal Russian ships.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a wake-up call when a Russian aircraft was about to bomb the shit out of that Estonian boat if it didn't leave that other ship alone. They are really pushing the envelope. And they are, like, for one, if that ship got bombed, Estonia couldn't have called Article 5 because Estonia was attacking that Russian ship in open water.
Yep.
So they were taking their lives into their own hands, which apparently they recognized. But there was a Polish aircraft out there also. So it wasn't Estonia by itself. This had to be something that NATO itself was doing.
Well, the politics have a lot of guts, but they don't get it from an authentic or organic place. It comes from standing behind the skirts of others. So in this case, it was Poland. Estonia is usually the most outspoken of the three Baltics, but all three are quite aggressive towards Russia. So I'm not shocked that Estonia did this. It's also much easier for the Baltics to do stuff to Russia than it would be for, say, one of the Scandinavian countries. Because if Russia retaliates against little Estonia, it's just little Estonia. What are you doing, big mean Russia? If it were Finland and Russia went after them, it would have all of this historical context, political context, and it would be a big brouhaha. But since it's little, stupid, silly Estonia that's no more populated than New York City, nobody's going to make a big deal, and they'll just write it off. I mean, it's a 6,000 person army. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't think Finland was able to bleed the Russians once before. I don't think they have that capability.
No, they don't. But if it were them to go after a ship and Russia to retaliate, that would be very newsworthy and notable. But since it's Estonia, you're like,
yeah. I guess my feeling though is they don't need reality. In this case, they have, how can I explain this? NATO has gone with an unreality for the last several years. Even, Russia with 150,000 people is going to take over all of Europe. Russia just wants all of Ukraine. Putin is just a bad man who is attacking Ukraine for no reason. NATO is purely a defensive organization. We're just loving light, and Russia keeps messing with us. All of this stuff is unreality that they've worked with. Unreality scares me. And it scares me because it means that you don't need a rational basis for your activities and your behavior. So they could have said, we want Article 5. And the other nations might have said, Russia just attacked them for no reason. After all, that's the argument they're using in Ukraine right now. And this is a good gateway. What do you think about these negotiations? And I'm putting it in quotes. Even in the video, I have it in quotes.
They're not happening.
Right.
I woke up and I was like, well, I'm gonna go. Obviously, that was like the thing I was looking forward to the
Same
most
here.
this morning. I was like, great, not that I'm like, I'm not. I don't. Let me put it this way: I don't want peace at the cost of Russia not getting everything they want, but I
Right.
don't want the war to continue. So obviously, I was very excited for developments, and I'm coming to find out that Zelensky again is standing in the way of everything
Yes.
as usual.
Yes. Because he
The
doesn't
whole thing
want
was
peace.
suspect from the beginning. How he was like, okay, you just finished, or you just came off of 3 years of it being illegal for you to talk to Putin that you did yourself. Now you're insisting that you talk to him in Istanbul.
Personally, by the way.
Yeah,
Personally.
a NATO state. As when they said that, I was like, it's a trap. I was like, I'm probably being too paranoid, but I was like, why? Like, what are
Oh,
we
I didn't think it
doing?
was a trap. I
I
thought,
don't
well,
like
I thought,
Turkey. I do not trust Turkey at all right now, and they are like a cornered wild animal. No offense
so,
meant.
so I thought Putin put Zelensky in somewhat of a trap. And let me explain why. And you give me your take why. When I think all of this is a propaganda exercise and diplomatic warfare. And so you get Europe coming out saying, we want a 30-day ceasefire. And you get Donald Trump on the phone agreeing with them, effectively being cornered to say, okay, I'll agree to your 30-day ceasefire. Then Putin comes out and says, well, I don't want a ceasefire. Let's just have talks in Istanbul. Let's just go back to Istanbul 2.0. And we will pick up where we left off with the realities on the ground, and it will be unconditional. So the ceasefire stuff, nonsense. The war continues. We're going to keep grinding away westward while we have these talks. And two, we pick up where we left off, meaning from our framing and point of view, we are starting back with the Istanbul agreements that you had already agreed upon with the new realities on the ground for the 5 or the 4 additional areas that we're going with. Meaning they set a context for those talks that you are coming here to capitulate. Meaning your agreement is what you were agreeing to before with this additional stuff. We can have other conversations, but all things being equal, that's what it is. And if the conversation is just between Russia and Ukraine, well, there's no conversation. When Donald Trump was having, if you add Trump into a conversation and Trump tells him you have no cards, what Trump is telling him is, look, I can talk about sanctions. I can talk about business deals. I can talk about investments. I can talk about all of these things in addition to you, where at the very least, I may be able to get a deal with them that includes something for you. If you are having a conversation with them one-on-one, you got nothing. If you keep going, your military is going to collapse. So any deal that you make is going to be at your own detriment because you have no cards in this proposition. So when Russia's like, let's have direct talks, they're effectively saying, we're going back to the old conversation we were having before, where you were effectively agreeing to what we were putting out. Now, then you get Trump saying, I may come to the negotiations. You get Rubio, Kellogg, and Wickoff coming to the negotiations. Hell, Lindsey Graham is at the negotiations. You get all of these Western players at the negotiations. And the reality of it is none of these people want peace.
Mm-mm.
I don't even think the Russians all that much want peace. I think they would accept it if they got what they wanted.
Sure.
But Zelensky can't do it. Like, meaning he's if Zelensky did that, as my other guest pointed out, Zelensky will be hanging from a flag post with them saying, Jewish traitor or something like that, because these guys are Nazis ultimately. So
Probably would say Jewish traitor.
yeah, they're racist, right? They accept Zelensky because he's effectively embodying the things that they want. But all things being equal, they hate the guy's guts. So, there is no room for negotiation. It sounds like what they're trying to do is to convince Trump that what Zelensky is trying to convince Trump is, hey, okay, I'm here. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to be in Istanbul to have these negotiations. And so the strongest position he could take is, well, I'm going to talk to Putin face to face. Well, that wasn't part of the bargain. Even before in the Istanbul agreements, they weren't talking face to face. You send your diplomatic team, they send their diplomatic team. The Ayatollah is not having a conversation with Trump. They have their diplomatic teams that are there to negotiate. And so Zelensky ends up having a conversation with Erdogan, blows off the morning negotiations, and there's a question about whether they're going to negotiate at all. And it's going to apparently depend upon whatever the conversation he has with Erdogan. So I, I found this to be a farce. I didn't take it as, look, from my point of view, Erdogan wants to be considered a statesman. So I didn't really think it was a trap in the context of anything with Turkey, if that makes sense. Give me your take on this. I understand why you don't trust Turkey. Erdogan is
I don't trust Turkey with Putin having a warrant. Period. I don't trust Turkey as a NATO state with Putin having a warrant at all. So that's that. I don't trust Turkey.
Are you saying Putin having a warrant?
Yeah.
I see what you mean. ICC warrant.
Okay. Yeah.
I see.
And Turkey's one that wants to curry favors with other states. They're much more wanting to ingratiate themselves with the West than the East. They would much rather if they were given a choice. So it felt like a trap. I'm being extreme probably and dramatic. But regardless, I knew it was pointless for him to go anyway. Zelensky is hemming and hawing and delaying this meeting so he doesn't have to go. So he doesn't have to meet with them. He's afraid to meet with them. So he meets with Erdogan. And then he's like, well, my plane's leaving at 4. So this has got to be really quick. And
but he knew he wasn't going to meet with Putin.
He's not meeting with anybody. And I think that Putin sent an actual message without even needing to negotiate. If you look at who Putin sent and you actually look at them, they were like hardliners, military men, people that negotiated in Syria. Like they weren't there to negotiate in the vein that Zelensky wants. So that was probably a lot of it. He maybe felt intimidated. It was a very large contingent of all Russian military and GRU operatives.
Yep. One was head of the GRU.
Mm-hmm. So there's that. He might have felt kind of intimidated. They weren't there to negotiate for peace in the sense that America or Zelensky thinks. They were there to negotiate a military peace. And they're not going to take all of these other, we're going to buy time. We're going to, it's a ceasefire for a little bit. No, they're not going to take all of that. So I actually was just looking at it while I was waiting to come on here, still waiting for them to meet. His meeting with Erdogan just finished, and we're waiting for Russia to release a statement. And then Zelensky goes home at 4 p.m. His flight takes off. So
it was always, like I said, propaganda. It was theater.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah.
All of these. Do you think Trump realizes that? Like, is he Donald Trump, when he put out the tweet, initially Zelensky was like, well, I'm not going to talk to Putin unless there's a 30-day ceasefire. And Trump was like, you better get your ass over there. And Trump pointed out, Putin doesn't want a 30-day ceasefire. He wants to end the war. Now, Trump seemed to be okay with that, right? That was Trump's position anyway. Go and you can see where people stand. But he had to know that Zelensky doesn't want a deal, that Zelensky can't take a deal. This is kind of like Boris Johnson, when Boris Johnson was like, there was no circumstance where Zelensky could have signed or accepted the Minsk agreements. Meaning they knew in advance. The people who were backing Zelensky in that government was never going to allow him to accept a ceasefire. And so it seems like all of this is a propaganda exercise just to convince Trump that, hey, I'm open to this, even though he's not. And Putin puts it out there to say, hey, we're open to negotiations, even though all things being equal, I strongly suspect they want to accomplish what they need on the battlefield in order to force Ukraine into some level of surrender. Otherwise, how do you get denazification? How do you get recognition of the territories? Like, how do you get these things without kind of a formal surrender by the state of Ukraine, if that makes sense?
I'm not really sure. You'll just have to wait and see, I guess. You're not going to get a formal surrender from Ukraine while Zelensky is in office. So I don't know that you're going to get a formal surrender of Ukraine at all, or if that's even allowed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where.
What you mean allowed?
Well, they're at the behest of the EU. Like, they need a plan. If they're going to make peace with Russia, they need a plan for what happens after that peace. And that means whoever is helping with that peace needs to be on board with the peace. So, I mean, Ukraine's not going to rebuild itself. So other people are obviously involved in these peace talks and what the outcome will look like. Ukraine's also not going to rearm itself. So it will need help doing that. So again, those countries that are doing that will have to be on board.
Do you think they would even have, like, okay, maybe I'm more cynical on this. I am not of mind that these peace talks are good. And God, man, I think our positions are flipped. when we were first talking, I think I was more, I think I initially had the thing of, okay, I have a certain level of optimism.
No, I don't. They're not even going to happen. I don't even think Zelensky will talk to the people.
I'm saying I don't think this is going to be decided through peace talks at all.
No, it'll be decided militarily. And I think that was also a message that Putin sent with this delegation, how militarily stacked there was. I think there were 2 or 3 civilians in the whole group, and the rest was the military, showing like, we're not here for political peace talks. This is military peace talks. You won't be rearming. And they can't get that guarantee out of Zelensky or the EU.
Yeah.
So it's just not going to happen.
It's like, we're here for your surrender. And these are the military guys that's going to accept it.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good point. I was watching, and in fact, I think it was DDGO Politics where I first saw the breakdown. Eventually, I saw it on TASS that was giving a breakdown to people, but I think I saw it on your channel first.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for people, DDGO Politics is fantastic. You guys come out. The information is constantly coming out over the course of the day. In fact, I just saw them breaking up Erdogan and Zelensky having a 3-hour conversation.
Mm-hmm. So he had 3 hours to meet with Erdogan, but he won't have time for the Russian delegation. Like he's playing games too. Yeah. Not very good because they're insulting. But he's playing games too. He thinks that they're power plays. They're not. They're actually just
he doesn't need to be there for the negotiation. That's the part that I don't quite get. Like he's like, I'm going to Istanbul. Okay, why? Why? What are you doing there? Lavrov is not even there, right?
Exactly.
Like, he didn't send his main diplomat.
Exactly.
You just needed this in your team. You didn't need to go.
He did that on purpose as a show, but it didn't really work out the way that he wanted it to. He actually looks stupider.
The question is, what is Trump going to do?
Wash his hands of it. They said that they would be washing their hands of it. They're not involved in mediation anymore.
That's what he said. And by the way, they did send their team. They sent Kellogg, Rubio, and Witkoff.
I mean, that's not.
Witkoff was the one negotiating.
But they're not taking the mediator position. Turkey took the mediator position, which is exactly what the United States would say.
I see what you mean.
I mean, I think a week ago, or 2 weeks ago.
Do you think he's got to now? Even if he walks, is that a full walk away?
No. They still have the mineral deal that they signed,
which is a Lend-Lease agreement.
Yeah.
And by the way, we don't even know. Have you gotten any information on the other 2 pages of that mineral deal? Because I haven't seen them yet. And apparently there's some heavy shit in those other 2 pages.
Really? I did a thread on the recent trip of his sons to the Middle East, and it seems that his trip to the Middle East is just a follow-up of that. It's just private business deals and real estate. It's really funny, and people are getting very excited over this Middle East trip. I sat down to start researching it because I was like, all right, let me see what the Middle East trip and what do we get out of it? And I was like, going, where did he go? Who did he meet with? What deals were signed? And then I'm like, none of these deals are for like America.
Yeah,
they're for some Americans that he knows and likes, but they're not like for America. They're like, oh, it's gonna bring jobs to the United States. Even if it did in a perfect world, it would be like less, maybe in the 5 digits at most, and it wouldn't be permanent. It would be temporary just to fill those contracts, and then that would be it. But that's not even how it's going. It was all just more private deals to buttress up the real estate and the AI and crypto deals that were already in place. So really a lot of pomp and circumstance for I like to say no bread and all circus. That's what it was. All circus. It was just I guess like the biggest one that would help America would be the Boeing contract, which I mean, my brother in Christ, we can't get Boeing to build Air Force One on time and on budget. You want $142 billion worth of planes from them? Do you think that's smart? This isn't going to happen.
Bribery. It's just bribery.
Yeah, this isn't going to happen.
Bribery.
And for the Qataris, 142 billion is like chump change.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get you anything with the Qataris either. You don't have any leverage over them. All they have is money. So, I mean, that's you having their money does not, they're like, we'll just get more out of the ground. Like,
Yeah.
literally, like, they were the richest country, one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest still. They were the richest per capita not too long ago. But
It
so
seems
nothing is what it seems with the Middle East trip. And now we're ending up in Abu Dhabi, which Abu Dhabi, as people would know, as a secondary headquarters for the Trump crypto fund, the WLF. The UAE, the Emiratis out of Abu Dhabi invested $2 billion into Trump's private crypto
that is
venture.
a scam. God, that's such a scam.
So
Trump uses the U.S. government first time to invest in crypto, a stable coin,
Mhm.
and then he comes up with his own crypto venture with his kids running around getting all of this investment into this fund. Now, they screamed to high heaven about Hunter Biden doing something very similar with the Biden name, where effectively it's like, I'm sitting here with my father and you better give me $20 million or
I'm
else.
sorry, but it's not even close to Burisma.
It's not even close.
It
This is even worse.
surpasses Burisma
Yes.
tenfold. Like,
Yes.
there are multiple countries, multiple companies. This is not a Don Trump Jr. and he has a deal with DAR Global in Qatar. No, they've got to deal with DAR Global. They've got to deal with the QIA, which is ran by the Qatari state. They have deals inside of UAE. They have deals with another Saudi real estate firm. They have deals everywhere. And we're not talking 20 million. The deal in Qatar alone for the golf course is 5 billion. That's just the golf course, not the rest of it. So, I mean, we're not talking chump change here. This is huge private interest. Huge private interest. Go look at the list. I believe it was on the Hill. I also, I might have some of it in front of me. The list of people who went on the trip with Trump. I was doing this last night and pulling up the notes. Let me see if I have it.
I know it was Musk.
Musk,
He was
Alex
there.
Karp went.
Uh-huh.
CEOs from Google, Amazon, Uber, just a parade of CEOs. Parade. Insanity. Insane, the people that went along on this trip.
So what is the goal here? To get those companies into the Middle East? So you have an Uber in the Middle
Don't
East?
forget, and now I'm giving you a sneak peek for my show on Sunday, but there are so many members of the Trump admin that have very suspicious ties to Qatar. Pam Bondi was a lobbyist for Qatar. Kash
The
Patel
FBI?
also worked in
Yep.
Qatar security.
Yep.
Susie Wiles was also a lobbyist for Qatar. Jared Kushner has ties to Qatar. Steve Witkoff and his sons have huge ties to Qatar.
Really?
Steve Witkoff was bailed out by Qatar for $600 million with his real estate company. And of course, we have the Trump and the Trump sons. There are huge, the Trump family is very ingratiated, or the Trump admin is very ingratiated. We have two factions. It's very interesting because we have the old guard who are very ingratiated to your APACs and your Israel. And then you have your new guard that is in this new money, this Saudi, UAE, Qatari money. And so that's where these two are butting heads. And you can see it now. It's kind of coming to fruition for me as we watch him sort of push back on Israel and who freaks out and who's kind of like, well, let's go. I mean, these people brokered the deal for the $400 million plane. That was Pam Bondi and Witkoff that brokered that deal for that plane. And Pam Bondi had to sign off on it because she's the country's attorney general. So that's what's happening.
So, oh God, this is super interesting. So do you believe that the Trump, I mean, I have been, because I've been confused by some of this stuff. And, you know, when I get confused, I try to break it down to the audience, my confusion and why.
I think you're confused because of how stupid and like base level it is, right? I wouldn't understand why somebody would want to ingratiate with themselves with Qatar, UAE, and Saudi, because I don't value the same things that these countries do. But you put yourself into Trump's shoes and Trump's mindset. He gets off that plane and he sees skyscrapers and beautiful white marble mosques. He's like, I want that. Gold-plated toilets, I want that. This is prosperity. This is it, because that's what he thinks prosperity is. All that gaudiness, all that gauche, all that camp, all that nonsense. That is Trump. He loves that. I would have paid to be there to see when he first went to the to UAE and went to Dubai. He probably got off the plane like, this
Look,
is
I would
the
tell you,
promised land, and it's really like a
Dubai
hellhole
is
in the Middle East.
gorgeous,
I
except for the slaves that are
I
building it.
hate Dubai because that's all I can feel while I'm there is like this horrible heavy energy. Like when you see stuff like that, you know, and you know inherently that somebody's suffering behind this because
And
that's
behind
how
the
it has to be.
scenes, you can see this kind of the people shuffling behind that are effectively almost quote unquote slaves
Yeah,
that are
everybody says
building.
this service in Dubai is top
Yeah,
notch. Yeah, because they'll get
yeah,
abused if they don't give you good
yeah.
service.
I nearly got arrested in Dubai. There was that.
But they love that. I think you and I have talked about this. They want stuff like that. They want indentured servitude. They like that. They're setting up conditions for that in El Salvador. They're doing that in the Maldives. Maldives has indentured servitude for the most part. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic because they do get paid, but
Yeah.
it's nothing. And same thing with UAE is and same thing with Saudi and Qatar. Interestingly, and now I'm really giving you a sneak preview. Susie Wiles. And now this is going to take you down maybe a rabbit hole, but Susie Wiles and Pam Bondi both worked on Qatar to whitewash their human trafficking offenses while they were building for the World Cup.
Are you serious?
Don't forget, Pam Bondi was also the Attorney General while Epstein was gallivanting around Florida, and now she's delaying the Epstein file. So just keep all of that in the back of your mind as you're watching these people, because that's what they were hired to do. They were hired as lobbyists to make sure that the funding kept going for the World Cup and that the human rights violations that were coming out were whitewashed.
All right.
The human trafficking.
I want you to let's put a circle around that. And I want to connect that circle to Trump and Israel.
I will do my best.
All right. So my confusion has been that all of these media reports have been coming out saying there's a rift between Trump and Netanyahu. Oh my God, Trump and Netanyahu seems to be at odds. Oh, Trump is, and to be fair to the media reports, you did see a few things, right? There were a few, let's say, stones down that road. You get Trump bailing out from the Houthis when the Houthis effectively repudiates. Yeah, Trump basically capitulated. His pain threshold was much less than you would think Big Papa's pain threshold would be. They nearly shoot a plane out the sky. They nearly hit the tanker. And the last thing you want is an aircraft carrier going down on your watch, right? So Trump is like, okay, just don't attack us. We want to attack you. F Israel. If you need to attack them, you can do that. And they've still been firing missiles. Apparently another one hit Ben Gurion Airport.
And they took out another MQ-9.
And took out another MQ-9.
You said we were going to get out of the airspace, Trump.
Come on, Trump lies as easily as he breathes, right? All right, so you get that part. Then you get Witkoff talking to hostage families saying, hey, your POW son that was over here killing Palestinians, the reason that he's still in captivity is because of Israel. Netanyahu doesn't want to end the war. He has no war aims, but he keeps the war going. It's his fault. Okay, that's astonishing. Joe Biden would have never done that. Joe Biden couldn't even get the words out to say something like that. Nevertheless, he was willing to effectively say something that most Israelis even believe at this point. All right, so there's that. Then there's talk about him sidelining Israel to try to make a deal with Hamas directly. Now, apparently Israel didn't even know that Donald Trump was talking to Hamas about the American POW. They found out through Israeli intelligence. So there's talk about groups like AIPAC being sidelined and being boxed out of the decision-making from the Trump administration. Now, I'm very skeptical of this, or at the very least, he may have issues with Netanyahu, but the relationship between Israel and the United States hasn't gone anywhere. It's still
really
stable, right?
Yeah.
So how does all of this influence from the Qataris, the money coming from the Saudis, how does all of that, or does it have an effect on what seems to be, let's say, a contradictory relationship with the U.S. and Israel? Or is there any contradiction in these two things?
Well, maybe we're finding out that the contradiction actually comes from Bibi.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's 16. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish this and I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I think that what they're trying to say is, look, we can get all of these guys on board. The UAE's good, Saudi, Qatar, all these people are on board. It's you, Bibi. It's you. You've got to go. Like, I mean, look, this is Jared Kushner's peace plan, right? Everybody gets on board the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
The only people that haven't are Qatar and Saudi. Qatar won't for now because of Hamas, and Saudi won't because it was hinging on the Palestinian state. Now
Right.
it's not. So this is actually like Trump can probably maneuver in a way and be like, I've gotten them to make concessions and to invest in the United States. And you're the one who's actually standing in the way of all of this. So you've got
You're
to
saying
go.
Saudis gave up this notion of a Palestinian state?
I'm not saying that they gave up entirely, but it's off the table. The point of the Abraham Accords is to decouple
Right.
normalization from Palestinian state. So if they get Saudi and Qatar to sign on to these Abraham Accords for the foreseeable future, it's over. This idea of a Palestinian state is over because who else will be pressuring Israel for it? Nobody with any leverage except for maybe the Europeans who aren't going to do anything about it.
They're not going to do anything. Yeah. From my understanding, Trump dropped this demand from the United States that Saudi Arabia recognizes Israel. That was one of the other stones. Saying, hey, you can get your nuclear power. No issue. You don't have to deal with Israel. Again, Israel's like, what the F?
Right. That's outside of the Abraham Accords still. But yes, the goal right now for the Trump administration, and especially the Kushners, is to get Saudi and Qatar into the Abraham Accords because it helps with business. It's big time helps with business. And that's what they're worried about. They're establishing their legacy. You could really tell if you watch what the Trump sons are doing and Kushner's doing, they're establishing a Trump legacy that if it all goes according to their plan, we'll be here forever. We're talking golf courses across the Gulf. We're talking towers in the Balkans. I mean, they're everywhere. These guys are everywhere. Towers in Southeast Asia. They're everywhere.
Wow.
And everybody said they're isolationists. These people are globalists.
Yeah,
they don't want any borders.
Not so much. They just want them under their terms. Sarah, thank you for the preview. Oh, thank you for the preview. It's just fascinating. Don't just take me down a rabbit hole.
There will be more. I'm sure I'll be back down in the rabbit hole today. But yeah, I was there for like 6 hours yesterday, and I was like, "What?" It's just really interesting how intertwined they are with Qatar.
You do an amazing job.
Thanks.
You really do. I like I said, DDGO Politics comes up all the time, and it really informs my point of view about what's taking place, like the tip of the spear news about what's in this issue, this issue, this issue. And it gives you something where you can kind of go and research to figure out, okay, what are more details associated with it? It's really good snapshots. Just for the audience to know, definitely check them out. They are fantastic. You guys have a YouTube channel also, correct?
Yes, and we'll be live today in 5 hours. So join us today if you guys have time. And then again on Sunday, same time, noon Pacific.
3 p.m.
Yep.
Sarah Bils.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Going back to bed.
I'm wide awake. Like people used to look there. To be fair, when you have a morning show, there are some days where you are just dragging ass. I'm an insomniac, so sometimes I don't sleep well. But there are far fewer in between than people realize. And I think it's me just looking at the camera. And some people's like, hey, why don't you just transfer the camera off of you? That way you're not just staring at the camera when the other person is talking. It's like, okay, maybe that's a better idea. I don't know what it is. Sometimes when I'm looking down and I'm writing, and they're like, I think he's falling asleep. Dude, I'm just writing.
I don't know how you do it. 3.5 hours, I'd be asleep. I'd be done. Toast.
Usually, it's easy when you're interested in the topics and when you have really good guests. Today was easy. I had fascinating guests the entire time. So today was easy. There are days where it drags, where you're like, see, on Fault Lines, I always had a co-host. And so worst come to worst, sometimes your co-host will ask something interesting that you just don't think of because different people, different points of view. Whereas on this one, if it's dragging, then you just have to make it through. And sometimes that can get difficult. But usually, if it's good guests, good topics, it goes by fast. Today went by very fast, which is why I didn't notice that it was after 10 o'clock.
That's okay.
Sarah,
have a good one. I'll see you next week, probably.
Yes, if you're open to it.
I'm open to it. Just shoot me a text and have a good weekend, Jamal.
Thank you. Sarah Bils, independent journalist, U.S. Navy veteran, and co-founder of DDGO Politics. You have a good one. You okay?
You too.
Be safe. All right. We have come to the end.